All right. Good morning and welcome to episode 3 of the Powerpuff Babes podcast, where sugar meets spice and everything nice. We're your hosts, Allie, Mo, and Kat. As we've discussed in the last episode, every Wednesday will be about true crime or paranormal stories. So today we have real cold cases for you, and next Wednesday will be about insane hauntings. Either you pick for us or we will find one to talk about ourselves. So grab a drink, some snacks, sit back and relax, and let's get started. I have a case that I decided I wanted to talk about. It just, when watching the episode, was very weird, and the more, obviously things, it just kind of how it happens when you dig into things, you're like, weird, and, stuff like that. So this one I thought was very interesting. Alright, so mine is called the 13 Minutes case. And it is an unsolved case, so just keeping that in mind, that in all of this, there's no answers, so they're still trying to figure things out. So basically, I will explain why it's called the 13 Minutes case later on. But my case is about a woman named Patrice Andres, I believe is how you would pronounce it. The episode never really said her last name, and I couldn't exactly find anywhere that would, say it out loud. So on April 15th, 2004, Patrice Andres was reported missing because there was just some circumstances about what happened that morning that were very weird to her clients. Basically, she ran a salon, and people noticed that things were a little bit weird that morning, a little bit rushed, kind of distracted. And when one of her clients came in for their appointment after she had gone missing, she wasn't there and things were, awry, so they called the police. When the police got there, they noticed that her lunch was out on the counter. It wasn't warmed up, it wasn't touched, it hadn't even been opened, like it was about to be warmed up. And so right off the bat, it's like, that's kind of weird. Why would she not, eat her lunch? Why would she not warm it up? They also noticed that the cash register was open and that her purse had been messed with, although they found that nothing out of her purse was missing. They also noticed that there was no sign of a break-in or a struggle, which, kind of thinking back to it, she was working in a salon, like, things might, like, the door might not have been locked even if it was lunchtime. But they were like, there's also no sign of a struggle, so they're not entirely sure what happened. So basically, it's called the 13 Minutes case because the police narrowed it down to a 13-minute time frame in when they think everything happened that caused her to go missing. So I have a timeline that I will read out just to understand how they got to that 13 minutes. So basically, at 8:50 a.m., one of her clients named Pam Shepard arrived for her 9 a.m. appointment. She says that Patrice was very distracted and not very attentive to her, which is something that was out of the norm for Patrice, since she was a very open and outgoing person and could talk to her clients for hours after their appointments were done. At 11:05 a.m., Pam leaves the shop. At 11:10 a.m., another client, Paul Cantor, arrives for his haircut. At 11:27, Paul leaves, and as he's leaving, he gets a call from someone which has been verified by the police, so he was not a suspect. At 11:35 a.m., a customer calls to change their appointment. They noted to the police that Patrice was very short on the phone and very distant and distracted, which was also unusual. At 11:37, the phone call ended. That phone call lasted 2 minutes. At 11:50 a.m., Patrice doesn't answer the next phone call from our different client. So the police put together that from 11:37 to 11:50, something happened and Patrice had gone missing. They, at the time, weren't sure if she had been kidnapped. They noted that the only thing that they found quote unquote weird outside of the salon was that her car wasn't parked the way she normally parked it. Because her car was parked in the front of the building, kind of facing, kind of outwards towards the street, because her salon was on a busy street. The door of the salon was facing the street. So normally she would park next to the building on the side door, which is where she would enter her salon every morning. They noted that since she was in front of the salon, everybody thought that was very weird. They had a few theories as to, what could have potentially happened to her car. They wondered if she moved it, she wanted it for some other reason. They wonder if the person who had kidnapped her, or if the person who had caused whatever happened, that they moved her body and came back and then moved her car, considering her keys were still at the scene. And then another theory they had was, did someone need a jump start? Because that could potentially explain, the position of her car, and since it was in a weird position. But they found no answers to any of their theories and kept them as just theories. One of the main suspects that they came out with right away was her husband, Rob Andres. For obvious reasons, when you watch true crime and things like that, if anybody has a significant other of any kind, they kind of look to them first, what happened? Are you responsible? Do you know anything? All of the above. So one of the reasons that he was a suspect for a little bit, that once they talked to her friends, they were told that she was unhappy in her marriage and had wanted a divorce. They were also told that by her son. When looking around the crime scene, they noticed that there were no footprints, fingerprints, fibers, trash, or any other potential clues. Considering it was a hair salon, any hair samples were rendered useless because, they weren't going to know if it was a customer or if it was the person who they were looking for, or the people they were looking for. At this time, they did not know if it was one or more people. They still do not know. They also found fingerprints on her car, but rendered that useless because they realized that those fingerprints belonged to her mechanic that she had seen earlier that week. They also wondered if it could have potentially been a couple of the local serial killers. One of the serial killers that they questioned was Jeremy Bryan Jones, who was active in Oklahoma, Kansas, Alabama, and Georgia, which is where Patrice was. When he was talked to, he claimed that he had gotten lost and he went to her salon to get directions and get a jump start. Since Patrice was his victim type, he claimed he'd kidnapped, raped, and murdered her. He also gave a location where he dumped his body, which was 65 miles south of where her salon was. He claimed that he drove to a river and dumped her body over the bridge. The police then checked that area and anywhere from her salon to that area and around the area. They did an extensive search and found nothing. Later on, he recanted his testimony and he told the police that he had lied to get better food, extra visitation, and phone privileges. They realized that it wasn't him, and they put that theory to the side. They didn't exactly say that it wasn't him, that it was just, at the time they were like, we're going to put him to the side because we don't think it's him. But since they don't know, they're still, kind of looking at him as a potential suspect. Another serial killer that they were wondering if it could have potentially been was a serial killer named Gary Michael Hilton, who was active in North Carolina, Florida, and Georgia. He was named the National Forest serial killer, which struck their attention because of where he would find and dump his bodies. So he caught the police's attention when he kidnapped and murdered Meredith Emerson, and he dumped her body in the forest, which we later find out was 50 miles, about 50-ish miles from where Patrice was buried and left, because they were put in the same forest. When they were talking to him, he mentioned that he liked to watch places like hair salons and things of the sort, and he would go in and he would ask for money because that was kind of his con that he would use. He would ask for money, and then he would, lure them into false senses or whatever, and then he would take them. He also said that his favorite time was lunchtime. So because of what he had said, they looked at him as a potential suspect because Patrice worked at a hair salon, and around the time that she had gone missing was lunchtime. Although they wondered if it was him, they had considered it a dead end because while they couldn't prove that he wasn't involved, they also couldn't prove that he was involved. It was just kind of, at that time, grasping for straws because it had been months and they had no clue what happened, who did it, anything of the sort. It was later found that Patrice was found 600 days later on December 6th, 2005. She was 10 miles away in the woods behind Lebanon Baptist Church. She was found by Albert Clark and a friend of his. They were at the time volunteering for the church, and they were building a new part to the church when Albert was behind the church with his friend. They were eating food, and his friend noticed that there were vultures and buzzards flying around, and they were like, oh, let's go check it out. And so when they went down there, they noticed that it was like a deer, and they were like, oh, it's just a deer, nothing crazy. But his friend noticed that there was something next to him, and so he asked Albert what was next to him. And Albert says when he looked to his right, he noticed that there was a skull, which they thought was a human skull. So they called the police. Because of the recent heavy rain in the area, where Patrice's body was left had become uncovered. After they searched the area, they came to the conclusion that they were Patrice's remains. Excuse me, I'm trying to find a specific part of my notes. Basically, the area where she was found was rural and remote. They didn't know if she had been carried to where she was left, dragged to where she was left, or if she walked there and then was killed. Once they started up their investigation, they were investigating and looking around for a day and a half. There are 206 bones in the body, and they found slightly less than that. So there were a number of bones from her skeleton that they were unable to recover. So at this time, they realized that her body was left somewhere else. So Jeremy's story was, able to be proven slightly false. There were a few things that he said that the cops were like, there's no way he could have known that unless he, was a part of it. But it was later determined that, potentially from the other crimes he committed, that he could have just fabricated some of the things, considering at the time that they hadn't had her body. So at the moment, they're still looking at Hilton and at Bryan, but they're not certain. Another reason why they were stumped for so long is because a lady who was not named came forward, and she went to the cops and she claimed that in front of the salon she saw a white van and a man. When the police questioned her about it, she gave, a full detailed sketch. She claimed that the guy had a Georgia plate. She just didn't have, the numbers and like the license plate fully. She gave certain details about the van, that it was scratched up, that, there was just little identifiers about it. And when asked, she gave a detailed sketch of the guy she claimed to have seen. For months, they went on in an investigation. They put the poster up. The news caught wind of it. They started talking about it. This guy's face was everywhere. Any information about a white van was, requested. They were hoping that somebody could come forward and say that they had seen the man or that they had seen the van or anything of the sort. Later on, it was found out that she had lied. She came forward and she recanted her testimony. And because it was obviously very frustrating, she was charged with providing false statements. So after that, they were back to essentially square one. They had no clue who it could have been, how it could have happened, when it could have happened, things like that. Another reason why her husband was suspected was because when watching the episode and looking around, it was revealed that after she was found, he asked them if they could sort of reassemble her body. Like they had laid her bones out on a table and they put her back together as best they could, as anatomically possible. And they left him in the room alone, and he revealed that while he was in the room with her skeleton, he had picked up her skull and he had walked around with it. He just kind of, carried it with him around the room. That was just, something that people kind of thought was just a little bit strange. Like even in mourning, it was just kind of like very interesting, And after that, he said that he had put her skull down and he had given her a kiss goodbye and he left. Once they had cremated Patrice, they had given her ashes to her husband. And he then also revealed that when he had them in a box and he would sleep with them. He would have them in bed for, I believe he said a year, just about a year, and he would just sleep with them. He would cuddle up with her ashes, which isn't necessarily weird in the sense of like you're mourning someone that you loved, It was just kind of strange, to people because it was just a little bit of like, why are you sleeping with her ashes? Why are they not, like sitting up somewhere or something of that sort? It was also revealed that just after 24 hours of Patrice being missing, while investigations were still going, while searches were still going, Rob had changed all of the locks on their house. And people were just like, it's a little bit strange because, you know, she hasn't been found, nothing has been confirmed, she could still come back, so why would you change the locks so soon? When talking to Rob, he claimed that he did it because he was like, well, since she went missing, you know, I just want to take precautions. And, you know, I don't know if people are going to come for me. I don't know if people are coming for my family. So I changed the locks. Also, a part of why that was so weird was because he would not let her son Pistol into the house after he had changed the locks. Pistol said that for hours on end, he would knock on the windows, he would bang on the door, and Rob never came to open the door. He wouldn't let him get his clothes. He wouldn't let him get anything of his mother's. Like, he just would not let him into the house. It was revealed that they did not have the best relationship while Patrice was alive, and it got even worse after she had passed away. When they talked to her son, he had explained that that day, Rob had also thrown him out of the house. When he was talked to, they were able to, you know, kind of do an interview in the house, and he had said that he had not been back inside that house since the night before she had gone missing. Basically, that Rob would not let him into the house. So after Patrice had gone missing, Pistol went to stay with his father, who was still a good friend to his mom. You know, even though they were not together anymore, Pistol said that they were still each other's best friends. While it was very weird, his actions, they didn't point any fingers at Rob because there was nothing that could have proved that he, you know, was there. He had a timeline of when he went to get gas and when he clocked into work. And considering Patrice's salon was about 45 minutes from where his job was, that it was physically impossible for him to be in the area and make it back to work in time for the 13-minute window frame, the 45-minute drive there and back, stopping to get gas, all of that sort. So the police were like, that doesn't mean it's not him, but it drastically reduced that he could have been involved himself. While they said that, they also pointed out that that does not mean that he could not have, you know, done a murder for hire scenario. But that hasn't really been followed through because there's just also no evidence to really support that he would have done that. Another reason why they were kind of looking at him for so long was because Pistol had told the police that because of how Rob was in their relationship and how weird he was acting after Patrice had gone missing, that he thought that Rob had a part of it. Of course, this was before they had the timeline of his mourning and kind of put it in the back that, you know, it would have been possible. They did note that they thought it was very critical evidence, but nothing else really came out of that. There were two different eyewitnesses, completely separate of each other, that noticed at 11:45 there was a blue, either like a blue Chevy Lumina or a Ford or a Chevy four-door, I believe, were the three cars that it was kind of like. One of the witnesses said she saw a blue Chevy Lumina, and the other witness was like, I'm not sure the car, but it was a blue car. So regardless of what kind of car it was, two separate eyewitnesses saw a blue four-door car outside of her salon parked directly in front of the front door. One of the women noted that in front of the blue car, the salon door was open. And she said that she saw a tall, dark haired lady and a short haired, short, like kind of shoulder length, short lady. She said that when she looked over, she noticed that one of them had their hands on the other. She wasn't sure while driving by that, whether someone was being pushed, someone was being helped up, someone was being just kind of like held onto kind of thing. She couldn't really tell what it looked like. She also said that once she found out what happened, she greatly regretted not stopping because the police had told her that she was potentially one of the last people to see Patrice alive. And I mean, that's hard on anybody knowing that, she had passed away. The second man noted that while he saw a dark-haired lady as well, he said that he saw a short, shoulder-length haired man. So the police were not certain if it was a short lady with short hair or if it was a short man with short hair. But two separate eyewitnesses placed a blue car and a short person at her salon. And considering that they were not, like connected in any way, that it was, a very critical piece of evidence because it was like, this is something that definitely happened because there was no way those two people could have talked to each other prior to, telling the cops what they had seen. When they had found Patrice's body, they had also noted that her wedding ring had been missing, and when they did an extensive search of the area, they never found it. It was never recovered around the area or with her remains. It was a 1.5 carat pear-shaped marquee diamond in the center with two 14-carat gold rings attached. So it was kind of like a 3-band ring with a pear-shaped diamond in the middle. They kind of had theories that it was either kept as a souvenir type of thing or that it was sold to, a pawn shop or something else. They're just not sure where or when. So it's a slight hard lead to follow through, especially because, who knows if it's, the only, I mean, it's like you can't really say that it's the only type of that ring that's, out there. So it's kind of hard to pull in every woman or man that has, that kind of ring. So it's a slight lead, but hard to follow with, no information about it. Just trying to make sure that I have everything. Yes. Okay. So basically, to in general wrap it up, Patrice had gone missing April. Sorry, I literally just looked at it and I already forgot. I'm so sorry. April 15th of 2004 in Cumming, Georgia, and she was found some 600 days later on the dot, December 5th, 2006. She was found 10 miles from Lebanon Baptist Church, and her ring was never recovered. They are still uncertain as to what happened in those 13 minutes. They don't know who did it. They don't know when they did it. They don't know why they did it. They don't know if, since it was a busy street and people were constantly coming in asking for directions, asking for help, and things like that, they don't know if it was someone that was local to the area. They don't know if it was someone that was stopping through and just realized that it was an opportunity that they wanted to take. They are uncertain of kind of why the events transpired. I will say that the police posted at the end of the episode, and also I believe there was a Twitter post. I couldn't find it again, of course, after looking through all of these things. But they ask that if anyone has any information about the case or the missing ring, that they contact Georgia Bureau of Investigation tip line at 800-597-8477 or go to unsolved.com. Again, that is Georgia Bureau of Investigation tip line 800-597-8477 or unsolved.com, unsolved.com. There is an opinion I kind of had about the case that I will say before I wrap up for Mo to say her case that she has prepared. Upon watching the episode, it was revealed that because Pistol and Rob didn't have the best relationship when Patrice's body was found, they had cremated her remains, and upon cremating her remains, they gave them to Rob. We found out because the directors of the show and everything had kind of asked him to show her ashes and things like that. He had said that he wasn't going to give Pistol her ashes because he didn't like him, and because he kept her ashes and because he changed the locks, Pistol has nothing of his mother. He didn't have anything of his mother at the time, and he still has nothing of his mom's. And I would just like to give an opinion that I am extremely upset knowing this, that Rob thinks it's in his right to keep Pistol's mother's ashes from him. Like, that is his literal mother, and he has nothing of hers. And Rob isn't sharing the ashes, isn't, they're just kind of sitting there and he's doing nothing with them. But because he doesn't like her son, because they didn't have a good relationship, because he claims he doesn't trust him or anything of the sort, he's not giving him her ashes. And I just think that's so horrible and disrespectful, and not to make a joke out of it, because I kind of can't say that she's rolling in her grave, but she's looking down, I believe, and I think she's very upset because the way they described her, if anything, if not giving her ashes, splitting them amongst her friends and family, I would think that she would at least want her son to have them and or some of her ashes. So I just think it is extremely horrible that he thinks it's okay to keep her ashes and to talk down on her son after knowing what happened to her. So I hope that Pistol can get justice for that. I hope that, he can sue, or that Rob comes to his senses and, gives him some or all of the ashes. But yeah, I just think it is extremely crazy that, he would think it's okay to say anything like that, to do anything like that in the first place. Especially if Patrice wanted a divorce, because it's just even less in his right, because there's no way, that she would have wanted him to have those over her son. So, but that is my case. 13 minutes about Patrice Andres. If anybody has any questions, they can join the Discord, and I will answer any questions that I have, any questions that you have, that I have the answers to. But yeah, it was very crazy to learn about, especially, I kind of have there's this slight part of my brain that's like, are we sure it's not the husband? Because he sounds very scarily obsessive and, over the top. And like in the show, when he was talking about the ashes, he was like, I have her. He said out loud, I have her, when talking about her ashes. So it just, there's a part of me that's like, are we sure that it's not him, that he wasn't a part of it? Like, I think we should look more into him. Me personally, I think they should look way deeper into his credit card records of months to come, weeks to come before her disappearance, his actions around the time. Like, some of what he said and his actions just really don't sit right with me. Like, even if you don't like your wife's son for whatever reason, knowing what happened to her, I would think that if you love her the way you say you do, you wouldn't have done her son like that. There's just no way. That's, her blood, that's her family. So it's just, he hit a nerve. And he also made me just kind of sick to my stomach in the way that he was talking about her, her friends and her son. So he's weird to me, but, obviously I'm not going to put that out there like that because, innocent until proven guilty. But he just, he has a weird vibe about him that I don't like. But yeah. Yeah, but that's my case. So
I was reading over your notes and I was just like, dude, like he is so like everything that he's doing is incriminating him. Like it's just
right.
everything he's doing is pointing at him, almost
Yeah, it all just
as
looks
if
so
he's
weird.
already like confessed that he did it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like,
Mm-hmm.
why would you change your locks? First of all,
Mm-hmm.
why would you
Exactly.
ever change the locks 24 hours after your wife that you claim you
Mm-hmm.
don't have any like arguments or fights with
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um after she disappears? Why would you
Yeah.
kick out her son or keep
Mm-hmm.
him out of the house and not let him have anything of his mom's?
Yep.
And why would you carry her
That
skull?
part was weird.
Yeah.
And
Like I
the
get the
ashes
whole like
part,
sleeping with the ashes and stuff. That's a way of
yeah.
mourning and
That
whatnot.
part's less
But
weird to
carrying
me,
her
but
skull?
yeah, he asked for a minute with like her remains, and he said that he picked up her skull and walked around the room with it for as ever long as he was in that room, and then he set it down, kissed her
Ew.
goodbye, and left.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And he kissed her goodbye.
Yep. And he kissed her skull goodbye. Yes.
Oh my god, that's
No.
gross.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, it's just the ashes aren't weird, but what he did with her skull just didn't sit right with me. And him claiming that he changed the locks because he didn't know what happened to her and it was a safety precaution.
It
And
doesn't
then
matter if
not
it's a
letting,
safety
yeah,
precaution.
and then
Like,
claiming he didn't let Pistol into the house because also a safety precaution and because he didn't like him was just like, no, dude, like you
mm-mm,
don't do that.
mm-mm.
You don't do
And the
that.
whole "I have her now" is like, what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, like
That's
if I could
possessive.
find that part to like tell you guys to watch specifically. I mean, if you want to watch the whole episode, it's on Netflix. The show is called Unsolved Mysteries.
Mm-hmm.
The episode is obviously called 13 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
but it's at the end-ish part
Mm-hmm.
where he's talking about it. They ask him to like pull like her ashes out to show, and he was like, yeah, like I have her, like I'm glad I'm the one that has her, like that's a good thing. And it all just sounded so just ugh. Like it
I don't
just
know. It's definitely
ugh.
iffy. It's
Yeah,
definitely
I
iffy.
did not get a good vibe from him watching the show, hearing him talk, especially because literally how they did it makes him look so weird. Like her son is like, yeah, I've heard arguments, I watched some arguments, her friends are like she wasn't happy, wanted a divorce, and it cuts to him and he's like, we never argued, I didn't see the point in arguing. um like hearing about the divorce, this is new to me. And it's like, there's no fucking way,
Yeah,
no
no.
way that you didn't know she was unhappy, no way that you weren't at least arguing. Every healthy relationship argues, it doesn't matter whether it's big or small, everybody argues. So
At least
to
a
even
bicker.
point blank, yeah, like so to even point blank say that you didn't argue at all, no one's saying it's the world breaking arguments, but to say you didn't at all is just like, okay. I don't know about that.
Absolutely not, dude. Oh my god.
He's just,
That,
the way he seems very obsessive and manipulative and narcissistic and, you know, very containing of her is just, it doesn't sit right at all. Like, not to point fingers, but I'm kind of pointing fingers. It's weird. It sounds weird. It felt weird. It looked weird. So I don't know. But yeah, that's mine.
I have a case that also has a sketchy husband, but it kind of turns around. You're kind of like, oh, like it has you questioning, because the case I've chosen to talk about was the murder of Lacey Peterson, and the case took place almost 20 years ago today. It was on December 24th, 2002. It was taking place in Modesto, California. Scott Peterson and Lacey Rocha met in 1994 while both were attending college at California Polytechnic State University and married in 1997. So they were together for a while. So in October 2000, the couple purchased a home on Covina Avenue in an upscale neighborhood nearby Lacey's family. So she wanted to stay close by her family, and they were dreaming about about starting a family. Peterson was earning a good sum of money before taxes, and Lacey's loved one stated she worked happily at being the perfect housewife, enjoying cooking and entertaining, and in 2002 she and her family welcomed the news that she was pregnant. Lacey's due date was February 10, 2003, and had planned to name their newborn son Connor. In November 2002, when Lacey was 7 months pregnant, Scott was introduced by a friend to a Fresno massage therapist named Amber Frey. Scott lied to Amber, telling her he was single, and the two began a romantic relationship. The last time Scott's parents saw Lacey alive was during a 3-day weekend they spent together in Carmel, California, a week before Christmas 2002. On December 23rd at 5:45 p.m., Lacey and Scott went to a salon Lacey's half-sister Amy worked at, where Amy cut Scott's hair as she did every month. Scott offered to pick up a fruit basket Amy had ordered for her grandfather at Christmas because he would be playing golf at a course nearby. According to prosecutors, Scott also told other people he would be playing golf on Christmas Eve. At 8:30 that evening, her mother, Sharon, would call Lacey, making her, Amy, and Scott the last few people to see and hear Lacey alive. Ooh, give me a second. Sharon, in an interview, said, in December 24, 2002, quote, "A day as life as I'd know it stopped forever." On December 24th, Scott, 30, last saw Lacey, 27, at 9:30 a.m. As he told prosecutors, she was at home watching a cooking show, preparing to mop the floor, bake cookies, and walk the family dog to a nearby park when he left to go fishing at the Berkeley Marina. Later that morning, Karen Servas, one of the Petersons' neighbors, stated that between 10:10 and 10:17 a.m., she found the Petersons' dog, a golden retriever named Mackenzie, alone outside the home and returned him to the Petersons' backyard. About a half hour later, shortly after 10:45, another neighbor, Mike Chavera, said he found Mackenzie wandering the neighborhood with a muddy leash and also returned him to the Petersons' yard. Scott said he returned home that afternoon to find it empty with Mackenzie in the backyard and Lacey's 1996 Land Rover in the driveway. He showered and washed his clothes because he had gotten wet from fishing. At 5:15 p.m., when Lacey still hadn't returned home, Scott called his mother-in-law, and that half hour later, Lacey's stepfather, Ron Gransky, called the police. With Lacey being 7.5 months pregnant and missing on Christmas Eve, Lacey's missing persons case started attracting nationwide media interest. Modesto Police Detectives John Bueller and Alan Brockney, the lead investigators on the case, responded to Ron's 911 call. Give me a second.
You're good.
When they arrived at the Peterson home, Lacey's keys, wallet, and sunglasses were found in a purse in a closet, and the dining room table was set for a family dinner for the following night. One of the two detectives found a phone book on a kitchen counter, open to a full-paged ad for a defense lawyer. When the detectives questioned Scott that evening, they found him to be dead calm, despite family's distraught reaction to her disappearance. Alan Brockney found Scott's nonchalant demeanor suspicious, describing it as a strange combination of polite and arrogant, disaffectedly distant and impatiently irritable. He just didn't seem like a man who was crushed or even greatly disturbed by his wife's disappearance and possible death. John Bueller told ABC News in 2017, "I suspected Scott when I first met him. Didn't mean he did it, but I was a little bit thrown off by his calm, cool demeanor and his lack of questioning. He wasn't asking, 'Can I call you back? Can I have one of your cards?' or 'What are you guys doing now?' Although Scott initially said he had spent the day golfing, he later told police that he had gone to the marina to fish, and at 2:15 p.m. he left a message for Lacey stating, 'Hey beautiful, it's 2:15, I'm leaving to Berkeley.' Inconsistencies in Scott's statements led police to suspect foul play almost immediately. They did not treat the case as suspicious within the first few hours after the missing person report was filed. So during this initial period, Scott's in-laws defended him and portrayed him and Lacey as the ideal couple, and public perception of Scott reflected this. The media attention would grow, constantly asking questions with outlets up and down the street. Scott wouldn't appear in public pictures as a grieving widow. He looked smug or as if he had a smirk on his face, and all the stories and rumors floating divided the nation whether he was innocent or Lacey's killer. According to prosecutors, he was talking about his wife in a past tense as if she was already gone. But even when they did a sweep of the home, they did no signs of biological forensic evidence that pointed to the guilt of Scott Peterson. Where did I go? Where is it? I lost myself already. Okay. The case was so popular it gained celebrity status. There were crowds at her vigil, the press conferences, and outside the courthouses. She was considered a high-risk missing person under suspicious circumstance, and it was driving people crazy. Modesto police and firefighters carried out an extensive search along Dry Creek, a park nearby the home, the day after Lacey's disappearance. The search came to include helicopters equipped with searchlights, police mounted on horseback and bicycles, K-9 units, and water rescue units on rafts. A total of 30 officers were involved in the search, as well as Lacey's loved ones and volunteers, who posted flyers to raise awareness of her disappearance. The initial search and later vigil were organized by the immediate family and friends, and in the first 2 days, up to 900 people were involved in looking for Lacey. Before community officials or police directly participated in the search and prior to media coverage, a $25,000 reward was offered, later $250,000, and finally to $500,000 for any information leading to Lacey's safe return. Posters, blue and yellow ribbons, and flyers were circulated, and the original basic version of LaceyPeterson.com website was launched by the husband of one of her friends. Over 1,500 volunteers signed up to distribute information and had helped search for her. As everyone was racing to figure out what really happened to Lacey and why Scott was acting so calm, Amber Frey approached the police about Scott, who had denied police that he was having an affair. She told detectives that she met Scott on November 20th, and he initially told her he was single. After they had begun dating, she began to suspect that he was married and confronted him on December 9th about it. Frey told Bronkney, he said he lost his wife. This would be the first holiday he was without his wife. Amber allowed detectives to secretly record her phone calls with Scott in the hopes of getting him to confess. During the trial, the audio recordings of the couple's conversations were played, and the transcripts were publicized. I already said that. The recordings revealed in the days after Lacey went missing, Scott told Amber that he traveled to Paris to celebrate the holidays, in part with his new companions Pascal and Francis. In reality, he made one of the phone calls minutes before attending the New Year's Eve candlelight vigil for Lacey and Modesto. In an explosive press conference 1 month after Lacey Peterson goes missing, Amber publicly reveals her affair with Scott. Quote, "I am very sorry for Lacey's family and the pain that this has caused them," she said, "and I pray for her safe return as well." At a press conference on January 24, 2003, the Rocha family publicly withdrew their support for Scott, explaining they did this upon learning of his affair with Amber. Particularly upon seeing photos of Scott and Amber together, they later said that they were angered not by the affair, but by the fact that Scott had told Amber that he had lost his wife on December 9, 2002, 14 days before she disappeared, and that he would be spending his first Christmas without her. Police later speculated whether this was an indication that Scott had already decided to kill Lacey, which Sharon Rocha agreed was a possibility. At this time, most of the nation believed Scott killed Lacey, took her to the marina, and dumped her body from his boat, since the only piece of evidence that could be found was a strand of hair similar to Lacey's found on Scott's boat. On April 13, 2003, a couple walking their dog found the decomposing body of a baby in a small marshy area of the San Francisco Bay, north of Berkeley. Although a judge sealed autopsy results, an anonymous Associated Press source revealed 1.5 loops of nylon tape were found around the fetus's neck, and significant cut was on the fetus's body. One day later, a passerby found the torso of a recently pregnant woman wearing beige pants and a maternity bra on the eastern shore of the bay, along a rocky shoreline of the same park 1 mile away from where the baby was found. The corpse was decomposed to the point of almost being unrecognizable as a human body, since the head, arms, most of the legs, and all the internal organs except for the uterus were missing. On April 18, 2003, the results of DNA tests verified that the bodies were Lacey Peterson and her son Connor. The autopsy on both bodies was performed by forensic pathologist Dr. Bryan Peterson, no relation to Scott Peterson. Connor's skin was not decomposed at all, though the right side of his body was mutilated. An April 24th ABC News report stated his umbilical cord was still attached, and the San Francisco Chronicle reported that it appeared torn rather than cut or clamped, as if the normal practice following birth had occurred. However, ABC News later reported on May 30th that according to the autopsy, placenta and umbilical cord were not found at all with the body. The exact date and cause of Lacey's death were never determined. Her cervix was intact. She had suffered 2 cracked ribs, but Dr. Peterson could not determine if this occurred before or after her death. Lacey's upper torso had been emptied of internal organs except for the uterus, which protected the fetus, explaining the lower level of decomposition it experienced. Dr. Peterson concluded that the fetus had died in utero and determined he had been expelled from Lacey's decaying body, though when cross-examined in court the following year, he conceded that he did not determine whether he had been born alive when this occurred. Dr. Peterson also found meconium, I think, in the fetus's bowels, which is the first stool passed after birth. I already lost myself. Where did it go? The discovery of the bodies created a greater sense of urgency for Brockney and Bueller, who had put a tracker on Scott's car, knowing that he was in San Diego at the time. They feared he would escape across the Mexican border. Brocchini commented in 2017, "I just thought, we have to go find Scott right now. He told me he was there, and that's where the bodies come up. I mean, I believe it was premeditated. He planned it. San Diego was pretty darn close to the Mexican border. Scott knew the area pretty well. That's where his parents lived. That's where he lived. So it wasn't like he was going to get on MapQuest to try and figure out a way to get there." The FBI and Modesto Police Department performed forensic searches of Peterson's home. The FBI also conducted mitochondrial DNA testing on a hair from pliers found in Scott's fishing boat that linked them with the hairs recovered from Lacey's hairbrush. The authorities also searched Peterson's pickup truck, toolbox, warehouse, and boat. After Scott was arrested, police conducted further searches in the bay in an attempt to locate handmade concrete anchors they believed weighed down Lacey's bodies, claimed they would be down in Francisco Bay. However, none were found when the bay was searched, even though sonar could locate small objects on the seafloor. Scott was arrested on April 18th, 2003, near La Jolla Golf Course. He told police that he was meeting his father and brother for a game of golf. His naturally brown hair had been dyed blonde, and his Mercedes-Benz was overstuffed with items including $15,000 in cash, 12 Viagra tablets, survival gear, camping equipment, and several changes of clothes, 4 cell phones, and his brother's driver's license in addition to his own. Scott's father explained that he used his brother's license the day before to get a San Diego resident discount at the golf course, and that Scott had been living out of his car because of the media attention. However, police suspected these items were indication that Scott planned to flee to Mexico, an idea prosecutors would later concur with. Excuse me. On April 21st, 2003, Scott was arraigned before Judge Nancy Ashley in Stanislaus County Superior Court. He was charged with 2 felony counts of murder with premeditation and special circumstances, the first-degree murder of Lacey and the second-degree murder of Connor. He pleaded not guilty and was held without bail. Before his arraignment, Scott had been presented with Kirk McAllister, a veteran criminal defense attorney from Modesto. Chief Deputy Public Defender Kent Faulkner was also assigned to the case. Scott later indicated that he could afford a private attorney named Mark Gregoris, who had done other high-profile criminal defense work with Winona Ryder, Michael Jackson, and Chris Brown. On January 20th, 2004, a judge changed the venue of the trial from Modesto to Redwood City because Scott was the victim of increasing hostility in Modesto. A police community service officer testified that in an interview with Scott had no sound because no batteries had been placed in the tape recorder that was used to record it. Other detectives were called to testify about the extensive search for evidence. The prosecution presented Scott's affair with Amber, financial problems, and impending fatherhood as motives for murder, summarizing that he killed Lacey due to increasing debt and a desire to be single again. Also, the reported sightings all happened between 9:45 and 10:30 on the morning of the 24th. After Peterson said he left to go fishing March 7th to 2021, CBS News interviewed Janie Peterson, Scott's sister-in-law, in her quote-unquote war room of evidence. She claims proves his innocence. She claims witnesses saw Lacey walking in the neighborhood near the Peterson home after the time Scott said he was leaving for the fishing trip. If that's true, Scott wouldn't have killed Lacey. Scott Peterson's attorney explains, "There's been a lot of criticism because we didn't call some witnesses who saw Lacey that day, and that the thought process at the time was a number of witnesses who saw her didn't have a great memory or were contradicting each other. None of these witnesses were called to trial." Lieutenant Xavier Aponte at Norco Prison in California phoned in a tip in 2003 claiming that he overheard an inmate's conversation where Lacey was mentioned. "We sent our investigators down to interview Lieutenant Aponte, who confirmed and signed a declaration that it was true," Peterson's defense attorney Pat Harris said. "We asked specifically if he had been interviewed by the Modesto police, and he said yes. They interviewed me back before the trial started." Aponte's initial telling of the conversation appeared to align with the theory that Lacey was killed by burglars. He claimed that the inmate said she had been seen by one of the burglars and he threatened her. Harris said they decided not to bring up Aponte to testify at trial, however, when he began to change his story. He started saying, "Well, I don't really know what happened." He started backing off everything, Harris claimed. "There's evidence that was completely ignored that Lacey was alive after he left for the day," Janie said. She has claimed that if the couple's dog, Mackenzie, had been at the property at the time, he would have barked at the mailman. However, the mailman also said that he did not have a clear recollection of the day when the time came to testify. He said he remembered, quote-unquote, nothing out of the ordinary. Scott Peterson supporters theorized that Lacey confronted the burglars and that ended badly, but police quickly arrested the burglars Stephen Todd and Donald Pierce soon after. It's said that the Medinas left to celebrate Christmas in Los Angeles. They returned 2 days later to find their house had been burglarized. Another neighbor, Diane Jackson, reported she saw 3 men loading a safe in a van in front of the Medina home the morning Lacey went missing. The Medinas had tens of thousands of dollars in cash, possessions stolen from their home. It didn't take long for police to make an arrest in the burglary. An anonymous informant came forward out of concern for Lacey and named 4 men. Just 4 days after, Stephen and Glenn were arrested. America's Most Wanted ran a story on Lacey's disappearance, and an anonymous call came in on a hotline. They quote call, America's Most Wanted tip. Like other leads, this handwritten tip was lost in 48,000 pages of discovery, only to be found years later after Scott's trial. This caller said he had a conversation with two men who were bragging about Lacey's murder. The first man was a unnamed individual whom, due to the ongoing investigation, we will call John Doe. The second man was unnamed, but the tipster gave a description and knew where the second individual lived. It was reported that John Doe said when they did it, they thought it was going to be just another murder case. Now it's a big case all over the news. And they are blaming the husband, and they are not getting any attention. John Doe went on to say how stupid everyone was, so the evidence never made it to trial. Scott's defense lawyer based their case on the lack of evidence and played down the significance of circumstantial evidence. They suggested the fetal remains were a full-term infant and theorized someone kidnapped Lacey, held her against her will until she gave birth, and then dumped both bodies in the bay. Prosecution medical experts contended that the baby was not full-term and still died at the same time as his mother. The trial of Scott Peterson was so popular that jurors were getting removed for gossiping about the case outside of the courtroom, and one receiving threats when they were requested to be removed from the jury. On March 16, 2004, Judge Alfred A. DeLucci sentenced Scott to death by lethal injection, calling murder of Lacey, quote, cruel, uncaring, heartless, and callous. The crowds outside cheered once the news revealed Scott Peterson's case and believed Lacey and Connor could finally be laid to rest. In September 2006, a former Congressman, William E. Demire, sent a letter to the California Attorney General and other officials arguing that Lacey Peterson had been killed by members of a satanic cult, not by Scott Peterson. His lawyer, Mark Gregoris, told People in 2003 that there were links between Lacey's death and an unsolved murder of another pregnant woman, Evelyn Hernandez. She went missing May 1st, 2002, and her body also washed up in the San Francisco Bay. Furniture store owner Bill Austin said that in January 2003, months before her body was found, he was questioned about the possibility that a cult was operating from one of his buildings. He said that he told them he knew nothing of a cult and was never contacted by police again. On July 6, 2012, Scott's attorney Cliff Gardner filed a 423-page appeal of Scott's sentence, stated that publicity surrounding the trial, incorrect evidentiary rulings, and other mistakes deprived Peterson of a fair trial. The defense filed a response to the state's brief in July 2015 claiming that the certified dog that Detective Lacey sent at Berkeley Marina had failed 2/3 of the tests with similar conditions. In August 2018, the defense filed a reply, the sixth brief reply. The brief included 6 claims of deficient performance by trial attorney Mark Gregoris, such as failing to call experts in fetal growth, dog scent, how bodies move in water, stating that he could call witnesses but failing to follow through on this and failing to properly address burglary evidence. December 9, 2021, Scott Peterson was resentenced to life in prison without parole. So I'd like to ask you all a question. Do you think Scott Peterson murdered his wife and child?
I have like really strong, I guess my gut tells me there's something there with the husband, because it sounds a lot like, have you guys ever watched, I know Ali, you watched it with me, but
Yeah, I was thinking the same shit, yeah.
yeah, have you ever, if you guys ever watched, there's a documentary on Netflix, I believe it's still there, I haven't seen it since, but it's called
An American Family, something like that.
yeah, like The Family Next Door or something like that. Hold on, let me get the accurate like Oh, okay, go.
American Murder, The Family Next Door.
There you go. So it sounds a lot like that case.
Definitely.
But I mean, the wife isn't pregnant on that one. But
Yeah.
it definitely sounds like there is something there, especially to do with the husband. I want to say that people should really look into more into the husband than anything else. It's sad though how her her final moments were just, she was probably more worried about her child than herself. I feel like.
Yeah. I don't know, because personally, like, you want to think it's the husband because, we find out he had an affair with this lady and he lied to her, said that he wasn't with anybody, and then said that, it was going to be the first Christmas without his wife and all that stuff. And he just did a lot of weird shit and, I mean, lied about the affair and stuff like that. But there's just a lot of other things, like the lady that was found in a similar way a year prior to that. But it's also like, well, maybe they just use that as like their thought on how to, dispose of her body, because that information was put out into the world. And then, with every case, you have people bragging that they did it, very loudly so people hear. And those people are never really people I think anybody should listen to, because personally, I think, like, even serial killers don't really do that, And they're known for wanting people to know their work. They don't walk around and they're like, yeah, I killed this person. So whenever I hear that someone's like in this very public place loudly talking about how they killed someone, it's like, probably not. I do think that, like, it's kind of like, I want to look at the husband, because it's like, it's hard, because it's like, apparently these people claim that, they saw her after the husband would have left, but, now they can't remember. That's another thing, like, trials take so long that people forget, and it's really annoying. But I do think his trial could have been handled a lot better, because it looked like him, then didn't look like him, then it really looked like him, and then it didn't, and it, so it's hard to say,
That's
so like,
that's what I like about this case, because it goes back and forth so much. And I remember when I watched the documentary that as soon as they said that he lied about where he was, how I said he told Amber he was in Paris celebrating, but in fact he was actually at the vigil in the hometown for his wife.
Yeah,
It was insane. I was like, this man did it.
yeah, like, why lie about going to her vigil if it's your wife?
What bothers me, and I agree with her family, Lacey's family, is the fact that he was like already looking for another companion.
Yeah.
Whatever. He was cheating on her basically, and ended up telling her that he was single and that he lost his wife on December 9th, which was what, 14 days before she actually disappeared? And then claimed that he that he lost her. And I was like, it sounds very much like he already like made up his mind that he was either going to kill her or get rid of her in some way. And it's just sickening. Like, what? Why? Like, if you really don't want to be in that relationship anymore, even if your wife is pregnant, then there's always the option of divorce.
I know, like, just leave. Like, like, it's never that serious. And it's like, unfortunately, it's not, out of the norm for men to have pregnant wives and pregnant girlfriends and go cheat and shit, which is completely disgusting. Bottom of the barrel activities. But to turn around and tell the girl that you're having an affair with that she's dead, and this will be your first, like, out of the norm, it's like, why would you bring that up? Why would you say that? Because it's like, normally, you know, they do that, whatever, and they're just like, they claim they're single or they don't claim they're single, and it's just like, whatever. But to say that she's dead just puts such a weird light on him, because it's like, why was that in your head? Why was that something you told her? Why not say that you got recently divorced? Why not say that, you know, you're not happy, that you're leaving her? Like, something of that sort, but why say that she's dead?
Right.
And then him talking to the police about her in a past tense was
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
insanely out of the norm. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I want to say that in the case with what we were just talking about, the Netflix documentary, with Shannon and her husband. Wait, was it Shannon? Shannon, right?
Shannon.
Shannon. Yeah. They noted that he was also talking in past tense. Granted, he did it, but
Yeah.
he was also talking in past tense before they ever found the bodies.
Yep.
He was saying she did, while everybody else was like, she is, she does. Like, it was just really like, why is he talking? And he had kind of like the same actions, you know, like he wasn't really, you know, hurting. He wasn't crying. When he did cry that one time, a lot of people noted that it seemed really fake and kind of forced. He was also very nonchalant. So it's like, you kind of want to look at, like, for me, I kind of want to look at the husband just knowing that Shannon's husband was exactly how this guy is, and he did do it, you know? So I don't know.
But if anybody wants to watch it, it is a documentary on Hulu. All you gotta type it in is The Murder of Lacey Peterson.
Well,
what is up with husbands?
I don't know. There's some going on there. Like I said, if you really don't want to be in that type of relationship, or if you're not happy, there's always the safer option of divorce. Just do that, like, dude. You do not have to kill anybody. You don't have to go through the trouble. Like, what?
Yeah, like cheating in general. Like, dude, just leave.
Just
like,
leave.
What? Like,
If you're unhappy,
yeah.
just leave your relationship. Just divorce.
Like,
it's that
say
simple.
she's not dead, but like you still cheated on her. Like, she's this pregnant woman. Like, that's gonna stick
if anything,
with her.
the woman should be divorcing, not the man. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
continue.
no shit. Yeah. But literally, like, just leave. Broad statement about cheating, about anything, bottom of the barrel activities or not, just leave. Like, don't hurt people for no fucking reason. Just leave. If you're not happy, leave. Simply put. And don't kill them on your way out. Okay, Clumsy, your case.
So I have a cold case from Philadelphia. And it is called The Boy in the Box, also known as America's Unknown Child. Okay, so on February 25th, 1957, a body of a 4 to 6-year-old boy was found in a box in an illegal dumping ground near Susquehanna Road in Philadelphia. A college student by the name of Frederick Benonis reported the body. He did not report the discovery at the time that he found the body, because there were a lot of reports stating that Frederick had actually been in the area spying on students at a nearby all-girls school and was worried about the police interaction. So he waited until the day after to report the body. But this was not the first discovery of the boy. As a matter of fact, a few days earlier, a hunter had went out to check on his muskrat traps and discovered the box. He feared that his traps would be confiscated if he tipped the police, so he ignored the boy and continued hunting, claiming later that he did not want to be involved. Unfortunately, due to the cold weather and delayed phone call from the college student, it is difficult to accurately estimate the time of death. He was found stuffed in a cardboard box with nothing other than a blanket wrapped around him. Police found that his hair had been cut recently. Clumps of his hair were still found on his body and near his body. The boy had small scars in multiple areas of his body. Some indicated he underwent medical procedures. Cause of death was blunt force trauma to his head, and there were no witnesses. Both hands and feet were wrinkly as if he was submerged in water for a period of time before his death. There was no missing children's report from the area that matched the description of the boy. Police carried out door-to-door knocking and sent out over 400,000 flyers with images of the boy's face. They also had taken fingerprints and footprints, and the American Medical Association gave out a description of the boy, including scars and any significant marks. Investigators, out of desperation, even dressed the boy in common clothes and positioned him in a seating position for a photo in hopes that somebody would be able to provide them with a promising lead, but this led nowhere. The following will be clues that they found during the investigation and where they led. The box had a serial number that police were able to trace back to a JCPenney store 15 miles from where the body was discovered. The box was used to ship a bassinet, aka a crib, and police soon found out that the store had actually shipped 12 other bassinets. Unfortunately, all clients had paid in cash, leaving no records or information of the clients. 8 of the 12, however, called the police after hearing the news to go on record that they either still had the boxes or put the boxes out for a trash collector to pick up. Investigators managed to provide a time frame for the purchase of the box from the crime scene, and that was between December 3rd of 1956 and February 16th of 1957. Police also found out that the box in question was shipped to Upper Darby, Pennsylvania. The blanket, most articles I read reported that the blanket was Native American style and had been cut in half. The design consisted of diamonds and blocks with white, green, red, and brown colors and mostly faded. It has been said that this blanket has been made in either Canada or North Carolina, but there was no way to tell in which location this particular blanket was made because thousands were made and sold, and sadly, it was a dead end. Excuse me. The boy's body was severely malnourished and covered with surgical scars. He was also covered in bruises, which indicated that he had been abused before death. His body was so wasted away that his ribs were showing through his skin. It is believed that the child appeared to have possibly suffered from a chronic eye ailment or infection before he died, which had been treated with medication. There were 4 round-shaped bruises to which the ME determined that the child had likely died from blunt force trauma. It was found that the child had actually eaten baked beans a few hours before his death, which explains a brown fluid that was found in his esophagus. It was also discovered that the boy may have resided in a foster home located about 1.5 miles from the crime scene. There was a cap that was found 15 feet from where the body laid. It was in great condition and had a manufacturer's stamp in the lining, which read Eagle Hat and Cap Company, along with an address. When the police questioned the shop owner, Hannah Robbins, they learned that it had been custom made for a man between the ages of 26 and 30 with blonde hair and no identifiable accent. Mrs. Robbins had specifically remembered this sale since the man had asked her for a leather strap and buckle to be added to it. He purchased the cap with cash, and she never saw him again. This was also a dead end because there was no record of purchase. The following are going to be theories that I found in multiple articles and videos. And then at the end, I'm going to explain some theories that I came up with that are possibilities as well. First one would be Frederick Bononis. I can't remember. I can't tell if I'm saying that name right. But he was initially thought as a suspect, but he was questioned and cleared. The only reason he called the police was because earlier in the day he found a news article that was talking about a missing 4-year-old girl. And because he had remembered he'd seen the little child in the box, he immediately called it in. only to find out that it was actually a boy in the box. The foster home of Arthur and Catherine Nicoletti had 8 foster children residing there at the time. This is the foster home that is believed where the boy was actually residing as well. All of the children located at the foster home were checked out and the family was ruled out. Catherine Nicoletti did have one daughter of 20 years of age named Anna Marie, and that she had from a previous marriage. She is considered to have been mentally ill in some way and unable to live on her own. Before finding the boy in the box, Anna had 4 children out of wedlock. 3 of them were alive when the family was questioned, but one died in 1955 from electrocution at an amusement park. The police found no evidence that incriminated them, therefore they were initially crossed out of possible suspects. In the year 1961, the Nicolettis moved from their large home. They gave up on foster care and decided to sell the house. Remington Bristow, a medical examiner determined to find an answer to the case, began to work on the case in 1960. Initially, his findings were not very conclusive, and his investigation was going nowhere until he consulted a psychic named Florence Sternfeld from New Jersey. The psychic told Bristow to look for a large stone house with a wooden railing and a log cabin within the property. The detective then searched for a house like the description he was given, and to his surprise, it described the foster house in which the Nicolettis lived in and were selling. This encouraged him to further investigate the family. He went to look around the house and in an open house to auction the house and found 2 very interesting clues. One was a crib similar to the one that was from the box in the JCPenney store originally contained, and there was a small duck pond behind the house. The pond could be the answer why the boy's feet and hands were wrinkly. Unfortunately, he was never able to gather strong enough evidence that incriminated the family, and the father, Arthur Nicoletti, refused to take a lie detector test. The detective eventually died. The medical examiner eventually died, believing he had found the killers of the boy in the box. Another theory would be that Arthur Nicoletti, so his wife, Catherine Nicoletti, died, and he decided to marry her daughter, Anna Marie, which leaves the possibility that the boy in the box could have been the love child that they had and they didn't want to keep. Another theory would be that authors Lou Romano and Jim Hoffman came across a lead from a man from Philadelphia who said that his family once rented a place to a man who sold his son. A forensic pathologist looked at the photos of the boy's potential father and brother and found similarities in the facial structure on the chin, the helix of the ear, and the nose. A DNA sample was taken from the potential brother, but oddly enough, the Philadelphia police did not say whether they would test the DNA. They only said, quote, investigate further, end quote. Bristow also theorized that the boy died accidentally. The boy did have neat trimmed nails on both his hands and feet. And then the haircut, the nails indicated that he was well taken care of. Maybe the family didn't want to be charged with murder. That's one possibility, which I actually do not agree with, seeing as how he was malnourished. There was a woman who came forward. She was referred to as M, with a story about the boy. M claimed that her abusive mother had purchased the unknown boy, who they named Jonathan, from his birth parents in the summer of 1954. The boy was subjected to extreme physical and sexual abuse for 2.5 years. One evening at dinner, the boy vomited up his meal of baked beans and was given a severe beating, with his head slammed against the floor until he was semi-conscious. He was given a bath, during which he died. These details matched information known only to the police, as the coroner had found that the boy's stomach contained the remains of baked beans. and that his fingers were water wrinkled. M's mother cut the boy's distinctive long hair in an effort to conceal his identity. M's mother also forced M to assist her in dumping the boy's body. M said that they were preparing to remove the boy from the trunk of a car when a passing male motorist pulled alongside to inquire whether they needed help. M was ordered to stand in front of the car's license plate to shield it from view, while the mother convinced the would-be Good Samaritan that there was no problem. The men eventually drove off. This story corroborated confidential testimony given by a male witness in 1957, who said that the body had been placed in a box previously discarded at the scene. Police were unable to verify her story. Neighbors who had access to M's house during the stated time period denied that there had been a young boy living there and dismissed M's claims as ridiculous. It is also said that after looking into M's background, they found a history of severe mental illness. Sorry, I'm losing my breath. On July 24th of 1957, the boy was finally buried in Philadelphia. Everyone who attended consisted of investigators of the case and policemen. DNA testing was later available, and policemen dug out the body of the young boy in 1998. They hoped to finally find the killer, or at least the name of the boy. Now that new technology... Wow, what is going on? I'm so sorry.
Oh, good.
Now that new technology was available. See, I'm losing myself too. Oh, Lord.
Give yourself a second. Take a breath.
Yep.
All good. Yeah. Take a second.
Gotta drink some water. Okay. Police was unable to identify the body, but they were able to rule out possible suspects with the use of the DNA obtained. He was then buried again in November 11, 1998 at the Ivy Hill Cemetery, Philadelphia, with a donated coffin and a new headstone that has a picture of a lamb, and it contains the words "America's Unknown Child," dedicated November 11th, 1998. The original headstone used in the first burial is also included at the bottom of the grave. Just like the first burial, the people who attended were policemen, investigators, and members of a society called VIDOC, a group of independent investigators. The society dedicated themselves to solve the mystery of the boy in the box. There are no arrests to this day, and the VIDOC Society hosts a memorial service every year for the boy. They say advances in DNA technology is helping them in their quest to find out what happened. They refuse to give up on this case and want justice for this child. We hope that they are able to make a break in the case, but for now, this boy will still be known as America's Unknown Child. So, there is a couple of theories that I have in mind. If you guys remember, I did mention that there was a man in Philadelphia who mentioned that they were renting a place, or his family was renting a place to another man who was selling his son. And M is talking about how her mother purchased a boy, and they named him Jonathan. So what I'm thinking is that sometime after the rental happened, the mother purchased the boy and it essentially killed him, is what I'm thinking. What I'm also thinking is I kind of agree with the foster family theory, is that Arthur Nicoletti actually married the stepdaughter and had a love child, and they didn't want to keep him.
Okay. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Is the theory for that one, like, is it known that he married her, but the theory that the boy is their baby? Or is the theory entirely that maybe he married the stepdaughter?
No. So the he actually married his stepdaughter.
Ew, dude.
The theory.
I was hoping that was the theory.
Bro,
No, the theory is that he and the stepdaughter had a child, and they didn't want to keep the child.
Dude, that's disgusting.
how you gonna do that to your mom?
Right?
Well,
Right. Oh, I was hoping the entirety of the
Would,
thing was a theory that, like, it was like, oh,
glance.
maybe he married her, but that's nasty.
They would sneak glances at each other in the kitchen.
Yeah, like, I can't even imagine, like, when she was alive, like, what was their relationship? That's
yeah,
nasty.
no, it was, I don't know. I tried like going into more detail, like what, like, you know, during my research, trying to find some more information, but it it didn't give me much. All I knew is that he actually married the stepdaughter, and then the possibility was that they had this child, and that
Yeah.
child would have been the boy in the box. But no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say, like, I kind of want to believe the one of M and, like, her mom and things, just because the beating of, like, the throwing up of the baked beans, and, like, that the beans were in his esophagus, and, you know, the beatings that M said the boy had received matched up with, you know, and, like, when they talked to people, like, they had denied that there was a boy living there, but it's like, well, of course they would. If this boy had been murdered the way he did, you know, of course they're going to be like, no, there wasn't a kid here. Why would they be like, oh yeah, they had that little boy? No, of course not. So it's like, that theory is something that's kind of like, I mean, maybe.
As a matter of fact, I read more into that theory, and there are details still that people just don't want to, like, believe in, I guess. Is the fact that his, like, M's mom actually kept both of them in the basement.
Oh.
And she would bring out M as, because she was her daughter, but she would leave the boy in the basement, which kind of, like, tells me, oh, you know, the neighbors didn't know because the boy was in the basement.
Yeah. Like, they didn't see him, so, you know, they weren't lying, and they were like,
yeah,
no,
exactly.
we never saw
They
a boy.
couldn't really exactly say, oh yeah, there's a kid in there,
Mm.
other than M,
Yeah.
because they never saw him. So that's probably why they were, like, denying that there was ever a young boy there.
Yeah, because it's like, them denying it, either they didn't see him or they lied about it, knowing that their neighbors were murderers. Especially with, like, the guy that, you know, came forward and was like, yeah, I, you know, saw these people with the car, and it was nearby where the box was left, and, you know, like, obviously the injuries match up a little bit, or, like, more than any other theory. That one just kind of sounds, you know, a little bit more plausible than the other ones. And that fucking stepdaughter one, I don't even want to believe, just cause, like, nasty.
Right. There's actually there's one, like, little detail that I didn't mention in the thing because of how weird I thought it was. Bristow, the medical examiner, essentially made a mask of the boy's face, and was so desperate that he went out and traveled to Texas, and I believe it was Austin, bringing this mask in his suitcase. He would bring flyers and he would talk about the boy. And then essentially, if they were like, yeah, no, we haven't seen him, he would bring out the mask and then would be like, have you seen him? Like, are you sure you haven't seen him? And it was just, like, a weird detail.
That's
only
creepy.
Because of how desperate these people were trying to find out who this boy was.
I mean, like, I get going above and beyond to be like, have you seen him? Me talking about him, maybe you haven't, but, like, look at his face. But, like, that's just, it's just weird. Like, I know this would have been in the time where they couldn't have, like, used computers and shit to, like, make up what they thought his face would have looked like, so they could do that. But making a mask of his face to carry around with you is just a little bit above creepy.
Yeah.
It's just like, why? Why did you do that? That wasn't necessary.
That's I don't even know how to begin to describe that.
Yeah. Especially with the case, it's like, I mean, it's just kind of one of those things that it's like, at this point, who would come forward and, like, you know, like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
obviously
like
getting away
now
with it. Who
there's
would, yeah.
like there
Who and why would they come forward,
yeah,
you know?
the leading detectives on the case essentially passed away. And one is just there's two of them, so there's three. There's two of
Mm-hmm.
them that passed away. One of them is just really old now.
Yeah.
And Bristow died, like I said earlier. But there is definitely a high chance that whoever did this is already dead.
Yeah.
Um,
And if they're not on their deathbed, like,
yeah, it's definitely a puzzle.
yeah, this definitely feels like either they're dead or it's like they're waiting until they're on their deathbed to be like, oh hey, haha, I did it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't want to face the repercussions of what they did and how long it's been, so they're waiting it out if they're not already dead. So
Yeah.
Hope they confess to it, like what is it, the Zodiac killer did when right before he died.
yeah,
I want at least something like that.
yeah, it was one of them that like came out like right as he was like on his deathbed and was like, hey, I know what happened, it's me. And because they had like information that obviously the cops had kept secret, they were like, it's literally this dude, what the fuck.
And see, the thing is, like, the Philadelphia police also, like, at the time, they kept their news to themselves, so they wouldn't be able to get help from, like, nationwide
Yeah,
coverage. Even now, like, they keep all of the, like, evidence and everything to themselves. They don't want anyone
yeah, false
to help
confessions.
them. And it's just like, if you let other people look into this, like I assure you something would happen. Like
Like,
there
why
would
would
be
you
some
not want
sort of
more brain power on
yeah,
this?
exactly.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
that's kind of what my case, like the detectives on my case are doing. Like there's evidence and stuff that they like aren't telling people because they don't want false confessions. It's stuff that like only the killer would know or killers.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like keeping things to themselves and I'm like I get it to an extent, but what if one of those things just like might slightly lead to, you know, like if it's like the way they dumped her, someone's like, oh hey, you know, like me and my friend or me and my like family or whatever, when we go, you know, like hunting or something, this is how we leave the end, like, you know, something like that. Like it's something small that like really could, you know.
Mm.
So it's like I kind of get it because they don't want people to come out and be like, oh yeah, now that I know this, I know who did it or I did it, because they want like attention and things like that. But it's like it's been so long, like at this point, like tell everybody and anybody, get more brain power on this. Like somebody could have like a grandpa or something and be like, hey, whoa, wait, I remember this weird little boy that was here for, you know, a week and then just randomly disappeared, you know, something like that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like somebody could know something and because they're keeping things to themselves they'll never know. Like it's been a while but it hasn't been that long. It's crazy. That's so sad though. Like I hope that, you know, in his last moments he was, you know, like it wasn't, you know, he wasn't in like immense pain or anything like that.
Yeah.
Like
And
I'm
see,
hoping like he felt nothing, you know.
yep. And see, the thing is, like, what pisses me off is the fact that there was people who seen him, but they just ignored him.
Yeah, the dude that saw the box and then was like, I don't want to get in trouble because I'm here being a pervert. It's like nobody's gonna know why you're there.
Yeah,
There's a
and then
boy in the box. Like say something.
the guy, like the hunter, didn't want his traps to be taken, so he was
I
like,
know, like, dude,
don't want to be
fuck your
involved.
traps. Like, just ugh. People are just It just makes you so angry.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
Say something.
That's the one thing that was frustrating me so much when I was like doing this research, was the fact that if only somebody had spoken up sooner.
Yeah, definitely.
Something would have happened, but
ugh, that's so aggravating. Yeah, no, that definitely would have pissed me off. Like, it does, but like learning about it for the first time would have definitely upset me so fucking much.
mm-hmm.
Like reading more and more into it and finding out that not one but two people didn't say anything at first is just like, are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
There is a body of a tiny child in a box, and you're worried about your traps.
Mm-hmm.
Where are the priorities? Like, hello? Ugh, that's just oh my
It
god,
was
yeah.
just so frustrating. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how I felt.
God, that's
Exactly.
horrible.
Oh God.
You don't even know what to say at this point. You just want to
Yeah,
scream. You're like,
you just wanna yell at these people, like, if you could.
ugh, oh my god, that's
It was just so
insane.
frustrating.
I hate it. All right. Well, we have run slightly over time, but that's okay because
Yeah.
these cases definitely want to get out there and get more attention on. Maybe somebody knows something, no matter how long it's been or anything like that. So definitely okay to run overtime for things like this.
Oh, for sure.
But with that, the Powerpuff Babes are ending their episode here. Thank you for allowing us to be part of your day. Definitely stay safe out there. Make sure you're very attentive to your surroundings and things like that. Just definitely be careful. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Powerpuffs out.